About 12,000 years ago, a man stood on a hill in Anatolia. He gazed at the starry sky. Around him, dozens of people were working. They had no metal tools. They knew no wheel. They had no writing. And yet they created something that would turn our entire understanding of human history upside down. They erected monuments of stone, massive pillars weighing tons, decorated with mysterious animal figures. These people were hunters and gatherers. According to everything we believed we knew, they should not have been capable of this. But the stones tell a different story, a story that only came to light a few decades ago, a story that changed everything we thought we knew about the beginning of civilization. In the southeast of present-day Turkey, about 15 kilometers northeast of the city of Şanlıurfa, a gentle hill rises from the barren landscape. The locals had called it the Potbelly Hill for generations. In Turkish, it is called Göbekli Tepe. For centuries, this place was nothing special. Farmers cultivated their fields here. They occasionally stumbled upon strange stones, but no one suspected what lay hidden beneath the earth. In the early 1960s, archaeologists from Istanbul and Chicago examined this region. They found indications of ancient structures, but the true significance of the site remained hidden. Only 3 decades later did systematic excavations begin. What the researchers found exceeded all expectations. Beneath the hill lay enormous circular structures. In their center stood giant T-shaped pillars made of limestone. Some of these pillars were over 5 meters tall. They weighed up to 15 tons. The scientists estimated the age of the complex at approximately 11,000 to 12,000 years. This meant that Göbekli Tepe was older than anything previously known. Older than the pyramids of Giza by about 7,000 years. Older than Stonehenge by about 6,000 years. Older than the first known cities. This discovery called the entire historical narrative into question. Because Göbekli Tepe was created at a time when humans did not yet practice agriculture. They lived as hunters and gatherers. They roamed the land. They followed the animal herds. They collected wild plants. According to the prevailing doctrine, such people should never have possessed the ability to erect such monumental structures. Because for that, you need organization. For that, you need division of labor. For that, you need a sedentary population. Or so it was thought. Göbekli Tepe proved the opposite. The complex consists of several circular structures. Archaeologists have so far identified about 20 of these circles, but only a small portion has been excavated so far. Estimates suggest that less than 10% of the entire complex has been uncovered. What still lies beneath the earth, no one knows exactly. The T-shaped pillars are the most striking feature. They were carved from the local limestone of the surrounding area. The quarries are only a few hundred meters away. There one can still see half-finished pillars today. One of them weighs an estimated 50 tons. It was never completed. Why remains unclear. The finished pillars display elaborate decorations. Carved into the stone are depictions of animals. Foxes appear particularly frequently, but also wild boars, snakes, lions, cranes, scorpions, and ducks. The animals are depicted naturalistically. Their bodies are rendered in detail. Some pillars also show human arms and hands. These are placed on the sides of the pillar shaft. They suggest that the T-shape possibly represents stylized human figures. The horizontal part would then be the head, the vertical part the body. But why were these monuments erected? What purpose did they serve? The archaeologists found no evidence of permanent settlement, no residential structures, no hearths for daily use, no storage containers for food. The site does not appear to have been a dwelling place. Instead, the findings point to a ritual or religious purpose. Göbekli Tepe was possibly a gathering place, a sanctuary, a place where different groups came together. This interpretation has far-reaching consequences, because it suggests that religion or spiritual practice is older than agriculture. Until now, It was assumed that only the sedentary way of life gave people the time to develop religious structures. Only farming enabled surpluses. Only surpluses enabled division of labor. Only division of labor enabled priests and temples. This was the classical theory. Göbekli Tepe possibly reverses this sequence. Perhaps it was the desire to build a sacred place that brought people together. Perhaps it was the communal building project that led to sedentism. Perhaps agriculture began because the many workers needed to be fed. The temple came before the village, the sacred before the mundane. This hypothesis is not proven, it remains disputed, but the archaeological findings support it. In the vicinity of Göbekli Tepe lie some of the oldest known agricultural settlements in the world. The region is considered one of the cradles of farming. Here, wild grains such as einkorn and emmer were domesticated for the first time. It is tempting to see a connection. People came together to build the temple. They stayed. They began to cultivate the land. Civilization was born. But it is not that simple. The chronology is complex. The datings are not always clear. And Göbekli Tepe itself presents further puzzles. The complex was used and modified over millennia. The oldest layers date from around 9,600 before our era. The youngest layers are about 1,000 years younger. During this time, the construction style changed. The older circles are larger. The pillars are taller and more elaborate. The younger circles are smaller. The pillars are less elaborately designed. It seems as though the monumentality decreased over time. What does this mean? Did the site lose its significance? Or did the rituals change? Historians and archaeologists can only speculate. Then something astonishing happened. Sometime around 8,000 before our era, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried. The people covered the structures with earth and rubble. They hid the pillars under tons of material. This was not a natural deposition. It was a conscious act. Why did they do this? Was it a ritual? Did they want to protect the site? Or did they want to make it forgotten? We do not know. But we know that this burial preserved the site for posterity. The stones remained intact. The reliefs remained preserved. 12,000 years later, archaeologists were able to bring them back to light. The animal depictions on the pillars present further puzzles. Some researchers see totem animals in them. Each circle could have been assigned to a particular clan or group. The animal on the central pillars would then be the symbol of this group. Others interpret the animals as guardian spirits. They were meant to protect the sacred space. Still others see astronomical references. Some of the animal depictions could represent constellations. One pillar shows a particularly complex scene. A vulture appears to be carrying a headless human body. Next to it is depicted a sphere that could be interpreted as the sun or a head. Is this a mythological narrative? A depiction of a death cult? A cosmological symbol? The interpretations are varied. None is proven. What we know is that these images had meaning. They were not placed randomly. They follow patterns. They repeat. They were part of a system that we can no longer fully understand. The people who built Göbekli Tepe left no writing. They left no texts that could explain their thoughts to us. We have only the stones, and the stones are silent. But the stones also tell us what these people were capable of. They show an astonishing level of craftsmanship. The pillars were worked with stone tools. Flint and hard stone were the only materials available. Yet the stonemasons created smooth surfaces. Yet they chiseled fine details into the limestone. The transport of the pillars was a logistical challenge. 15 tons of stone had to be moved from the quarry to the construction site. The distance was several hundred meters. The path led partially uphill. How was this accomplished? Possibly with wooden rollers, possibly with ramps, possibly with ropes and pure muscle power. Experiments have shown that approximately 500 people would have been needed to transport one of the largest pillars. This means that Göbekli Tepe was the work of an organized society. There had to be leaders who coordinated the project. There had to be specialists who worked the stones. There had to be people who procured food for everyone. Near the hill, large quantities of animal bones were found. They come mainly from gazelles and aurochs. These animals were hunted and processed on site. The bones point to large feasts. Possibly the workers came from far away. They were provided with meat. The project was a communal undertaking that went beyond the boundaries of individual groups. Some researchers see in Göbekli Tepe the origin of a new social order. The construction of the sanctuary required cooperation on an unprecedented scale. People who did not know each other had to work together. They had to follow common rules. They had to put their individual interests aside. In this sense, Göbekli Tepe could be the birthplace of civilization. But caution is warranted. This interpretation is speculative. It is based on indications, not on proof. Other researchers are more reserved. They point out that we still know too little about the context. They remind us that the greater part of the complex has not yet been excavated. They counsel patience. What we can say with certainty is that Göbekli Tepe has expanded our picture of prehistory. We now know that hunters and gatherers were capable of monumental achievements. We know that religious or ritual practices are very old. We know that the people of the Stone Age were more complex than we long assumed. In 2018, Göbekli Tepe was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. The site attracts visitors from around the world today. Protective shelters have been erected over the excavated areas. Research continues. New technologies enable new insights. Ground radar and geophysical measurements have made further structures beneath the surface visible. There are indications of dozens more circles. The full extent of the complex has not yet been determined. Every excavation season brings new finds. In the wider surrounding area, similar sites have been discovered. They are smaller and less spectacular than Göbekli Tepe, but they show that this sanctuary was not an isolated phenomenon. It was part of a larger cultural landscape. A network of sacred places spanned the region. Göbekli Tepe was possibly the center, the most important place, the heart of a forgotten culture. This culture has no name. We do not know what the people called themselves. We do not know what language they spoke. We do not know what stories they told each other. They are shadows in history, but they left traces in stone. Some researchers wonder whether the memory of Göbekli Tepe survived in later myths. The region lies in Upper Mesopotamia. Millennia later, the first known high civilizations emerged here. The Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians. They all told stories of an ancient time, of a golden age before the flood, of wise ones who brought civilization to humanity. Are these stories memories of places like Göbekli Tepe? The assumption is tempting, but it cannot be proven. Between Göbekli Tepe and the first written records lie millennia. The chain of tradition is broken. We stand before the pillars today and marvel. We look at the animal reliefs and search for meaning. We dig in the earth and hope for answers. But the people of Göbekli Tepe took their secrets with them. They buried the site and disappeared. They merged into other peoples. They became farmers. They founded villages, then cities. They invented writing and forgot their origins. 12,000 years later, the stones remember them. They stand there like silent witnesses. They remind us that the history of humanity is older and more complex than we thought. They remind us that beneath every hill a secret could lie. They remind us that we still do not know so much. Göbekli Tepe is not an answer. It is a question to the past, and perhaps also to ourselves. Where do we come from? What drove our ancestors? Why did they build monuments for eternity, even though they themselves were mortal? What did the sacred mean to them? The pillars are silent, but their presence speaks. They speak of a will to greatness, of a striving for something beyond daily survival, of a longing for meaning. Perhaps that is the true message of Göbekli Tepe. Not the answers it gives, but the questions it raises. Questions as old as humanity itself. Questions we still ask ourselves. Beneath the Turkish sky, the hill stands. The sun sets as it has for millennia. The stones cast long shadows. Somewhere beneath the earth, more pillars wait to be discovered. Somewhere in the future, researchers will ask new questions. The story of Göbekli Tepe has not yet been fully told. It has only just begun.